Major Jack Thompson's coffee had long since gone cold, forgotten beside the softly humming quantum radar display. The graveyard shift at NORAD's subterranean command center was usually uneventful, filled with routine satellite tracking and space debris monitoring. Tonight was different. At first, he dismissed the anomaly as a sensor glitch, a cluster of objects materializing just beyond Neptune's orbit. But when the secondary and tertiary detection systems confirmed the reading, his hand froze halfway to the coffee cup. "Control, this is Major Thompson. We have multiple unidentified objects entering the solar system, requesting immediate verification." His voice remained steady, masking the growing unease in his gut. The objects were massive, far larger than any known spacecraft humanity had ever constructed. Within minutes, the command center erupted into controlled chaos. General Sarah Martinez strode in, her face illuminated by the pulsing red emergency lights. "Talk to me, Thompson. What are we looking at?" Before he could answer, the objects accelerated, crossing the distance to Jupiter in a fraction of the time it should have taken. The movement was precise, coordinated, definitely not natural phenomena. As they approached Mars, Earth's deep space imaging satellites finally captured clear visuals. The vessels were breathtaking. Crystalline structures that seemed to defy conventional engineering, their surfaces refracting starlight in prismatic displays. The smallest was roughly the size of an aircraft carrier, but it was the Flagship that commanded everyone's attention. The massive vessel, later identified as the Eternal Dawn, stretched over 3 kilometers in length, its hull adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial markings etched in luminescent materials. "My God," General Martinez whispered, all pretense of military stoicism momentarily forgotten. "Get me the president. Now." The aliens didn't wait for Earth to make first contact. Every screen, device, and communication system on the planet simultaneously activated with their message. The translation matrix they used rendered their words in perfect English, though the underlying tone carried unmistakable arrogance. "People of Earth, you are addressed by the eternal fleet of the Krylaxian Empire, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, arbiters of civilization. Your primitive world has been deemed worthy of absorption into our domain. You have 48 of your hours to submit to imperial rule. Those who resist will be eradicated. Those who submit will be elevated. This is not a negotiation." The message repeated in every major language, accompanied by detailed images of worlds the Krylaxians had previously conquered, and others they had destroyed. The implicit threat was clear: submit or join the graveyard of civilizations that had dared to resist. In the following hours, Thompson watched as the alien fleet took up strategic positions around Earth. Their formation was precise, almost ceremonial, with the Eternal Dawn holding position directly above the North Atlantic. Its presence cast a visible shadow on the clouds below, a constant reminder of humanity's apparent insignificance. Global panic erupted as the reality of the situation set in. Stock markets crashed, religions grappled with the implications, and governments scrambled to formulate responses. But in the depths of NORAD, Thompson noticed something odd about the alien deployment pattern. "General," he called out, marking specific points on the tactical display. "Look at their formation. They're maintaining consistent distances from each other, but there's a clear bias in their positioning relative to the sun." General Martinez studied the pattern, her eyes narrowing. "Almost like they're using the smaller ships to shield the Flagship from something." She reached for a secure phone line. "Get me Admiral Walker at Project Prometheus. Tell her it's about the radiation patterns we discussed." As Thompson watched the general hurry out, he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's response to this threat was already in motion, hidden beneath layers of careful planning and secrecy. The Krylaxians' message had been clear: submit or die. But they had made one critical mistake. They had assumed humanity would choose between only those two options. In the growing darkness of Earth's shadow, the Eternal Dawn's crystalline surface continued its hypnotic light show. unaware that its presence had already set in motion events that would shatter the Krylaxian Empire's aura of invincibility forever. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Rebecca Walker stood in a chamber that officially didn't exist. The vast underground facility, known to its select staff as Project Prometheus, hummed with activity as hundreds of engineers and scientists rushed to finalize 3 decades of secret preparations. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying across the central command hub. The chamber's walls displayed real-time feeds of the Krylaxian fleet's positions, alongside diagnostics of Earth's hidden defensive systems. Dr. James Harrison, lead engineer of the salvage integration team, stepped forward. His usual scholarly demeanor had been replaced by focused intensity. "The Mark VI prototypes are ready, Admiral. We've successfully merged the quantum field technology from the Lincoln crash site with our electromagnetic pulse systems. The Krylaxians won't expect their own tech to be used against them, especially not combined with human innovations." Walker nodded, remembering the night 30 years ago when a damaged Krylaxian scout ship had crashed in Nebraska. She'd been a young lieutenant then, part of the first response team. That single crash had provided the foundation for humanity's greatest technological leap forward. What the aliens had considered a minor loss had become their greatest mistake. "Show me the latest test results," she ordered, following Harrison to a heavily reinforced viewing chamber. Through the foot-thick transparent barrier, they watched as engineers activated a salvaged Krylaxian shield generator. The crystalline device hummed to life, creating a shimming barrier of energy. "Standard nuclear weapons barely scratched their shields," Harrison explained, inputting commands into a control panel. "But when we combine their own quantum field technology with focused electromagnetic bursts," he pressed a final button. A pulse of energy, nearly invisible to the naked eye, struck the shield. Instead of dissipating, the shield's energy turned inward, creating a cascade failure that shattered the generator into worthless fragments. "Beautiful," Walker murmured. "How many units are combat-ready?" 12 primary arrays and 24 backup systems, all disguised as communication satellites or space debris. The Krylaxian scans show exactly what we want them to see, a primitive species with basic orbital technology. Walker's tablet chimed with an incoming priority message. The feed from orbit showed the eternal dawn adjusting its position, its crystalline surface refracting sunlight in dazzling patterns. "They're so confident in their superiority that they're putting on light shows," she said, her voice tinged with grim amusement. "Admiral." A young lieutenant burst into the chamber. "The Krylaxians have destroyed Ramstein Air Base. Casualty reports are coming in." Walker's expression hardened. She'd known this was coming. The aliens always destroyed a major military installation to demonstrate their power, but knowing didn't make the losses easier to bear. "Begin Phase 2. Upload the targeting solutions to all Mark VI platforms, and get me a secure line to General Martinez at NORAD." As her staff rushed to comply, Walker moved to a private command alcove. The screen showed global panic unfolding. Riots in major cities, markets in freefall, military forces scrambling for positions they thought might help. The chaos was terrible but necessary. Every display of human fear and disorder fed the Krylaxians' fatal flaw, their absolute certainty in their own superiority. The secure line connected, and General Martinez's face appeared on screen. "Tell me you have good news, Rebecca." "Better than good," Walker replied. Thompson's observation about their formation was the final piece we needed. Their flagship's shield configuration. It's not just for show. They have a critical vulnerability to specific radiation bands. Our hidden arsenal is ready, Sarah. We can hurt them. Martinez's expression shifted from concern to cold determination. "The President's given us the green light, whatever it takes to protect Earth." "Understood." Walker ended the transmission and turned to her waiting staff. "Initialize Operation Trojan Horse. It's time to show these conquerors that humanity isn't as helpless as they think." In orbit, the eternal dawn continued its majestic dance, its crew blissfully unaware that their greatest defeat was already in motion. Humanity had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, and not a single Krylaxian had thought to ask why Earth's military response seemed so disorganized. They were about to learn that apparent weakness could hide devastating strength. The war room beneath the Rockies buzzed with controlled urgency as Admiral Walker assembled her tactical team. Holographic displays showed the Krylaxian fleet's formation from multiple angles, their crystalline ships arranged in what initially appeared to be a standard defensive pattern. But Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez had spotted something else entirely. "Look at the energy distribution," Rodriguez said, manipulating the hologram with practiced gestures. "Every time the Eternal Dawn shifts position, the support vessels move to maintain this specific coverage pattern." He highlighted several overlapping fields that created a protective web around the flagship. Dr. Emily Chen, head of Cinephysics, stepped forward. "We've analyzed the radiation absorption rates of their hull materials. The crystalline structure isn't just decorative. It's a complex metamaterial that can redirect most forms of energy weapons. But," she paused, bringing up data from their salvaged scout ship, "it has a critical weakness to specific bands of solar radiation." Walker leaned forward, studying the data. "That's why they're keeping that formation. They're not just protecting their flagship from attacks, they're shielding it from the sun itself." "Exactly," Chen confirmed. "Their shields are incredibly advanced against conventional weapons, but they're specifically tuned to deflect energy signatures they expect from spacefaring civilizations. Natural solar radiation at certain frequencies passes right through." Commander Sarah Hayes, Chief of Orbital Operations, smiled grimly. "That's where the Phoenix Array comes in. The satellites we've been launching under the guise of debris cleanup. They're not just for show." The hologram shifted, showing Earth's orbital space cluttered with apparent debris and defunct satellites. Mixed among them were the carefully disguised components of humanity's true defense system, a network of satellites capable of focusing and amplifying specific bands of solar radiation. "The Krylaxian scans show exactly what we want them to see," Hayes continued. "Dead metal and electronics. They're so convinced of our technological inferiority that they haven't bothered with detailed analysis." Walker nodded, memories of past alien encounters flooding back. "How many arrays are in position?" 17 primary units and 23 secondary platforms, Hayes replied. "Each one capable of redirecting and amplifying solar radiation at the exact frequencies their shields can't handle. But we'll only get one shot. The moment we activate the array, they'll realize what we're doing." Rodriguez brought up another tactical display. "We've also identified their standard attack patterns from historical data found in the scout ship's databases. They always begin their conquest the same way. A demonstration of force against major military installations, followed by systematic destruction of command and control centers." "Predictable," Walker mused. "They've never faced serious resistance, so they've never had to adapt their tactics." She turned to the assembled team. "That's their fatal flaw. They think they're facing a primitive species making its last desperate stand. Instead, they're facing an enemy that's had decades to study them and prepare." Dr. Chen raised a concern. "The radiation burst won't be enough to destroy the Eternal Dawn outright. Their hull material is too resilient." "It doesn't need to," Walker replied. "We just need to disrupt their shields long enough for Phase 2. She activated a secure communication channel. "This is Admiral Walker. Begin deploying ground-based units to these coordinates. Full camouflage protocols." Across the globe, hidden bunkers opened as massive railgun platforms moved into position. Each one housed projectiles, enhanced with salvaged Krylaxian technology. Weapons that combined human ingenuity with alien advanced science. "Time to make our first move," Walker announced. "Commander Hayes, begin repositioning our defensive fleet. Make it look disorganized, desperate. Let them think we're throwing everything we have at them in blind panic." As her officers moved to execute their orders, Walker studied the image of the Eternal Dawn hovering above Earth. The Krylaxians had conquered 1,000 worlds, but they had never encountered humanity. They were about to learn that apparent primitiveness could hide deadly sophistication, and that studying your enemy's wreckage for 30 years had consequences they never imagined. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez watched in controlled fury as Ramstein Air Base disappeared in a flash of crystalline light. The Krylaxian weapon signature was unlike anything humanity had publicly developed, a combination of quantum fields and destructive energy that reduced matter to its component atoms. Recording all sensor data, Dr. Chen announced from her station, her fingers flying across multiple holographic interfaces. Their weapon efficiency is exactly as predicted from the scout ship data. They haven't improved it in 30 years. Rodriguez allowed himself a grim smile. The Krylaxians' technological stagnation was another sign of their overwhelming arrogance. Why improve your weapons when you believe no one can challenge them? Energy dispersal pattern logged. Chen continued. Shield modulation frequencies confirmed. They're using standard combat configurations. They don't consider us enough of a threat to adapt their tactics. In the command center, Admiral Walker studied the incoming data. Each blast from the Krylaxian fleet revealed more about their operational parameters. The destruction was terrible, but every second of weapons fire provided crucial information they would need for the counterattack. Status of the Phoenix Array, Walker demanded. Commander Hayes consulted her displays. Final calibrations are complete. Dr. Harrison's team has adjusted the radiation-focusing elements based on the new weapons data. We can match the exact inverse frequency of their shield harmonics. The next hour brought more demonstrations of Krylaxian power. Military bases across Europe and Asia were systematically destroyed, each attack following their standard conquest protocol. But with every strike, humanity's sensors gathered more data, and the Phoenix Array's targeting solutions grew more precise. Admiral, Rodriguez called out, highlighting a tactical display. Look at their fleet movements during the attacks. The support ships maintain perfect formation around the Eternal Dawn, but there's a 3-second lag in their defensive screen when they fire their main weapons. Walker leaned forward, studying the pattern. Those 3 seconds are all we need. Update the firing solutions. We'll time the radiation burst to coincide with their next major weapons discharge. A priority communication channel opened, displaying General Martinez's face. Rebecca, we've lost 28 facilities. The President is facing intense pressure to surrender. How much longer do you need? Tell him to hold, Walker replied firmly. The Krylaxians expect us to break after losing our military infrastructure. Let them think it's working. We need them to commit fully to their attack pattern. The general nodded grimly and disconnected. Walker turned to her team. Begin Phase 3. Deploy our defensive fleet. Make it look like we're trying to protect our remaining military installations. Across Earth's orbit, seemingly outdated space vessels began to move. To the Krylaxian sensors, they appeared to be primitive nuclear-powered ships making a desperate attempt to shield their planet. The aliens wouldn't realize that each vessel was precisely positioned to draw their fire in specific directions. Message from the Eternal Dawn, Lieutenant Sarah Cooper announced. There, she paused, jaw tightening. They're laughing at us, Admiral, calling our ships admirable attempts at spacefaring technology. Perfect, Walker replied, her voice cold. Let them laugh. Enable secondary camouflage protocols on the Phoenix Array. When they scan our ships, they should detect exactly what they expect. Crude nuclear reactors and basic energy weapons. Dr. Chen's station erupted with new data. Admiral, they're charging weapons. Energy readings suggest they're preparing to destroy our entire orbital fleet in a single barrage. All stations, final positions, Walker commanded. Remember, we need their formation shifted exactly 12 degrees to port. Time the fleet's evasive maneuvers to the targeting coordinates. As humanity's ships moved into their carefully planned positions, the Eternal Dawn's crystalline surface began to pulse with building energy. The Krylaxians were preparing to demonstrate their ultimate superiority by annihilating Earth's space forces in a single devastating attack. They had no way of knowing they were maneuvering precisely where humanity wanted them, or that their moment of apparent triumph would expose them to a weapon they never imagined a primitive species could create. "All ships, execute Battle Plan Delta." Admiral Walker's voice rang through the command channel. On tactical displays, Earth's Space Defense Fleet began its apparently chaotic advance. Each vessel, deliberately designed to look primitive and nuclear-powered, moved in what seemed to be uncoordinated patterns. Commander Hayes monitored the Krylaxian response from her station. "They're taking the bait, Admiral. Their tactical officers are already mocking our amateur formation on open channels." "Of course they are," Walker replied, watching the Eternal Dawn support ships shift position. Pride before the fall. "Lieutenant Cooper, status of Phoenix Array synchronization." Cooper's fingers danced across her holographic controls, all the arrays maintaining camouflage protocols. Energy collectors are at 97% capacity. The Krylaxians still read them as defunct satellites. Dr. Chen burst into the command center, clutching a data tablet. "Admiral, we've decoded more of their tactical communications. Listen to this." She activated a nearby speaker, and a translated Krylaxian voice filled the room. "These humans are even more primitive than our initial assessment suggested. Their ships move without coordination. Their weapons are barely beyond nuclear fission. Supreme Commander, request permission to end this farce with a full barrage." Walker's lips curved in a cold smile. "They're right about one thing. This ends today. Rodriguez, begin Phase 4. Let's show them just how uncoordinated we can be." Earth's fleet suddenly accelerated, executing a series of seemingly desperate maneuvers that scattered their formation. To the Krylaxians, it looked like panic, a broken military making its final futile stand, but each movement was precisely calculated. "The Eternal Dawn is shifting position," Hayes reported, highlighting the massive flagship's movement on the main display. "Their support ships are creating a full defensive screen. They're preparing for their standard victory formation." Walker nodded. "Just like every other conquest. They're so convinced of their superiority that they've never needed to change their tactics." Dr. Chen, status of their shield configuration. "Exactly as predicted," Chen replied. "They're diverting 90% of their shield power forward, expecting our ships to make a suicidal charge. Their radiation screens are at minimal power." The Krylaxian commander's voice boomed across all frequencies, translated into every human language. "Your pathetic resistance ends now. Watch as your final defense crumbles before true power. Let this be a lesson to all who would resist the Empire." "They're powering up their main weapon array," Cooper announced, her voice steady despite the tension. "Energy readings are off the charts. They're planning to destroy our entire fleet with a single shot." Walker's expression remained calm. "Status of Phoenix Array positioning. All units in final position," Hayes confirmed. "The Krylaxians' own movement has created the perfect firing solution. We have 3 clear lanes through their defensive screen." "Send the coded burst to all fleet captains," Walker ordered. "Final positions in 30 seconds." Earth's ships continued their seemingly random movements, but each course adjustment brought them perfectly into position. The Krylaxians, focused on charging their superweapon, never noticed that the humans were herding them into a carefully planned kill zone. "Energy spike," Chen called out. "They're about to fire." "Now," Walker commanded, "all ships, execute Protocol Omega." In perfect synchronization, Earth's fleet performed an impossible maneuver. Ships that appeared to be crude nuclear vessels suddenly demonstrated acceleration and precision that no primitive technology could achieve. The Krylaxians' formation broke slightly as they tracked the unexpected movement, creating a critical gap in their defensive screen. "They're realizing something's wrong," Hayes reported. "Their support ships are trying to correct position, but they're too slow. The gap in their formation is exactly where we need it." Walker's voice was steel, as she gave the order they'd waited 30 years to execute. Activate the Phoenix Array. All units, fire. As the Eternal Dawn's weapon reached full charge, dozens of supposedly dead satellites suddenly pulsed with accumulated solar energy, ready to unleash precisely calculated devastation through the gaps in the alien formation. The Krylaxians had expected a primitive species' final, futile resistance. Instead, they were about to experience the full fury of humanity's hidden strength. The Phoenix Array activated with devastating precision. Dozens of satellites, their camouflage protocols dropping away, redirected concentrated solar radiation through the gaps in the Krylaxian formation. The energy struck their support ships at exactly the frequency their shields couldn't handle. Direct hits on multiple targets. Commander Hayes called out, her voice tight with controlled excitement. 7 support vessels experiencing critical shield failures. The Krylaxian fleet's perfect formation shattered as ships began to break apart, their crystalline hulls fracturing under the unexpected assault. The Eternal Dawn survived, its superior construction withstanding the initial blast, but the damage to its escort ships created chaos in the alien ranks. They're trying to re-establish their defensive screen, Rodriguez reported, tracking the frantic movements of the remaining support vessels. But their standard protocols aren't designed for this situation. They're exposing even more vulnerabilities. Admiral Walker's voice cut through the command center. Launch the ground assault. All railgun batteries. Execute firing sequence Delta. Deep within the Rocky Mountains, massive electromagnetic railguns emerged from hidden bunkers. Similar installations in the Andes, Himalayas, and other mountain ranges across the globe revealed themselves, their barrels tracking the Eternal Dawn's position with perfect synchronization. Dr. Harrison's voice crackled over the comm system from the primary weapon control center. All railguns charged to maximum capacity. Projectiles armed with modified Krylaxian quantum field generators. Firing solutions locked. Fire at will, Walker commanded. The ground seemed to shake as humanity's hidden arsenal roared to life. Each railgun launched specially designed projectiles at velocities approaching orbital escape speed. The projectiles, enhanced with salvaged alien technology, carried warheads that could pierce even the Eternal Dawn's advanced defenses. Multiple impacts detected, Chen announced, monitoring the energy readings. Their remaining shields are failing under combined radiation and kinetic strikes. The Krylaxian command channel erupted with shocked communications. Their translated voices, once arrogant and mocking, now carried tones of disbelief and growing fear. Impossible. These primitives couldn't have developed such weapons. Our shields are calibrated for energy weapons, not this hybrid technology. The radiation. It matches our own shield frequencies. How could they know? Lieutenant Cooper's station lit up with new alerts. Admiral, the Eternal Dawn is charging their main weapon array. They're preparing to fire on our ground installations. Exactly as predicted, Walker replied calmly. Execute Protocol Omega-2. Earth's orbital fleet, which had appeared to retreat in disarray, suddenly moved with precise coordination. Each ship activated hidden energy projectors, creating a complex web of electromagnetic fields that further disrupted the Krylaxians' targeting systems. Second railgun salvo ready, Harrison reported. Modified warheads showing green across the board. Walker studied the tactical display, watching the Eternal Dawn's energy signature fluctuate as it tried to compensate for the multiple attacks. Target their primary power distribution nodes. Fire when ready. Another thunderous barrage launched from Earth's surface. The projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds, carried payloads that combined human ingenuity with reversed engineered alien technology. As they struck the Eternal Dawn's weakened defenses, the quantum field generators activated, creating localized disruptions that allowed the kinetic energy to penetrate deep into the vessel's structure. Major hull breaches detected, Hayes called out. They're losing power to multiple sectors. Their weapon charge is destabilizing. The massive flagship's crystalline surface began to crack, ethereal energy bleeding from the wounds inflicted by humanity's weapons. Its support fleet, decimated by the precision strikes of the Phoenix Array, could no longer maintain an effective defensive screen. "All units, prepare for final assault phase," Walker ordered, her voice carrying the weight of 30 years of preparation. They thought we were primitive. They thought we were weak. Now they learn that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to adapt and overcome. As the Eternal Dawn's once beautiful crystal hull continued to fracture, the true scope of humanity's defensive capabilities was finally revealed. The Krylaxians had expected to find a primitive species cowering before their superior technology. Instead, they had walked into a trap 3 decades in the making, sprung by a civilization that had turned their own arrogance into a devastating weapon. The Eternal Dawn's crystalline hull blazed with uncontrolled energy as multiple railgun rounds pierced its weakened defenses. Each impact sent fractures, spiderwebbing across its once pristine surface, the gorgeous light show of its design becoming a display of its imminent destruction. Direct hit on their primary power core, Lieutenant Cooper announced, her sensors tracking the cascade of failures through the massive vessel. Their containment fields are failing. Admiral Walker watched the tactical display with stern satisfaction. Status of their crew evacuation protocols. "They haven't initiated any," Rodriguez replied, his voice heavy with the implications. "Their command structure is in complete denial. They're still trying to reroute power to weapons." The Krylaxian commander's voice thundered across all frequencies one final time, but now the trademark arrogance had been replaced by rage and disbelief. "This is impossible. We are the Eternal Fleet. We cannot be defeated by primitives who barely understand space travel." "Send our final message," Walker ordered. "Let them understand exactly who they underestimated." Lieutenant Cooper activated the broadcast system. Message transmitting. "You assumed we were primitive because we chose to appear weak. You thought our technology was basic because we showed you what you expected to see. Your arrogance blinded you to a simple truth. Humanity's greatest weapon has always been our ability to learn from our enemies." The Eternal Dawn's attempts to return fire proved futile. Its weapon systems, designed to unleash devastating energy attacks, couldn't maintain stable power with so many breaches in its quantum containment grid. Each attempt to fire only accelerated the ship's destruction. Multiple secondary explosions detected, Dr. Chen reported, monitoring the energy signatures. Their power distribution network is completely compromised. The quantum field generators are going critical. Commander Hayes' voice cut through the tension. "Admiral, their support fleet is breaking formation. Some ships are attempting emergency jumps to hyperspace. Others are." She paused, checking her readings. "Others are actually trying to surrender." The mighty Eternal Fleet, Walker mused, reduced to panic and retreat by the primitives they came to conquer. Rodriguez, status of our ground batteries. "All railguns reloaded and charged, Admiral. Final salvos ready on your command." Walker studied the tactical display one last time. The Eternal Dawn, pride of 1,000 conquered worlds, hung broken in Earth's orbit. Its crystal surface, once a testament to Krylaxian superiority, now resembled a shattered mirror, each crack leaking the same energy that had terrorized countless civilizations. "End this," Walker commanded. "All batteries, fire." The coordinated barrage from Earth's surface was a sight that would be remembered for generations. Dozens of hypervelocity rounds, each enhanced with reversed-engineered Krylaxian technology, streaked through the atmosphere. The dying flagship's sensors detected the attack, but its damaged systems could no longer generate even basic defensive screens. The impacts were devastating. Each round struck with precision, targeting the weak points identified during 30 years of studying salvage Krylaxian technology. The Eternal Dawn's quantum field generators, already destabilized, began an uncontrollable chain reaction. "Enemy flagship breaking up," Hayes called out. "Primary hull structure failing." The destruction of the Eternal Dawn was both terrible and beautiful. its crystalline form fractured along geometric patterns, each section dissolving into cascading waves of energy. The quantum fields that powered its devastating weapons collapsed inward, creating a spectacular light show that illuminated Earth's atmosphere. Incoming transmission from the Krylaxian survivor ships, Cooper announced. They're begging for mercy. Walker allowed herself a small smile. Humanity just demolished their undefeatable flagship. Their entire empire will know of this defeat within days. Send the response we prepared. Your surrender is accepted. Return to your empire with this message. Earth is not to be trifled with. As the remaining Krylaxian vessels limped away from Earth orbit, the true magnitude of humanity's victory became clear. The Eternal Dawn, symbol of an empire's invincibility, had been reduced to glittering debris by the very species it had dismissed as primitive. Its destruction would echo across the galaxy, a testament to the fatal price of underestimating humanity's potential. Admiral Rebecca Walker stood on the observation deck of the UDF Victory, Earth's first true interstellar vessel. Built using a combination of human innovation and salvaged Krylaxian technology, it represented humanity's official emergence as a spacefaring civilization. The debris field of the Eternal Dawn glittered in the distance, a memorial to both victory and change. Final status report on the surrender proceedings, Commander Hayes announced, joining her superior at the viewport. The remaining Krylaxian vessels have all signed the peace accord. Their crew members are being transferred to designated transport ships for return to Imperial space. Walker nodded, watching as shuttles moved between the surviving alien ships and the data package. Prepared and authenticated, Hayes confirmed. Every detail of how we defeated their flagship, including the 30 years of preparation and the fatal flaws in their tactical doctrine. It's being uploaded to their ship's computers now. Lieutenant Cooper's voice came over the intercom. Admiral, we're receiving the first responses from other civilizations. The Centauri Federation, the Proxima Alliance, and 3 other systems previously under Krylaxian control are requesting immediate diplomatic contact. Put them through to the main conference room, Walker ordered. She turned to Hayes. It's happening exactly as we predicted. The Empire's grip on the galaxy was built on fear and perceived invincibility. By destroying the Eternal Dawn, we didn't just defend Earth, we shattered the foundations of their power. In the conference room, holographic representatives from various alien species appeared around the table. Many showed signs of Krylaxian occupation, adapted technology, defensive installations, the scars of resistance. But now, there was hope in their expressions. People of Earth, the Centauri representative began, her translator conveying both respect and excitement. Your victory has changed everything. The Krylaxians convinced the galaxy that resistance was futile, that their technology was unbeatable. You proved them wrong. Dr. Chen entered the room, carrying fresh data on her tablet. The analysis of their surrendered ships confirms our theories. The Krylaxians stopped innovating centuries ago. They relied on overwhelming force and psychological domination, rather than advancing their technology. A strategy that worked until they met humanity, Rodriguez added. Their entire empire was built on the assumption that younger civilizations could never surpass them. Walker addressed the assembled alien representatives. Earth has no interest in replacing one empire with another. We fought for our freedom, and we believe every civilization deserves the same chance. She activated a holographic display showing technical specifications. That's why we're sharing this data with all of you. Complete details of how we defeated the Eternal Dawn, including our hybrid technology designs. The reaction was immediate. The representatives leaned forward, their species' various expressions of amazement clear even across cultural barriers. The Proxima Alliance leader spoke first. You would share such valuable tactical information freely. Knowledge should be shared, Walker replied firmly. The Krylaxians maintained power by hoarding technology and preventing cooperation between species. We propose a different path, an alliance of free worlds, working together to ensure no empire can ever threaten our sovereignty again. As humanity's first diplomatic conference with alien civilizations continued, Earth itself was changing. The Liberty Defense Network was already under construction, incorporating lessons learned from the battle. Hybrid technology research centers were being established on every continent, preparing humanity for its new role in the galaxy. In orbit, fragments of the eternal dawn continued to catch sunlight, transformed from a symbol of oppression into a warning for any future would-be conquerors. Humanity had not only survived its first contact with hostile aliens, it had shattered the galaxy's greatest empire and emerged as a force for positive change. Incoming message from the President, Cooper announced. The United Earth Council has approved the Alliance Charter. We're officially authorized to begin negotiations with our new allies. Walker smiled, watching Earth rotate below. The Krylaxians had arrived expecting to find primitive humans cowering before superior technology. Instead, they had discovered humanity's greatest strengths: adaptability, determination, and the ability to turn apparent weakness into unprecedented victory. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity was ready to help shape its new future.